With Ubisoft's new game Star Wars Outlaws set to be released pretty soon, there's a lot of buzz surrounding it that hasn't really been positive. Every time they seem to post a video about it on YouTube, it gets heavily ratioed. But now it's looking like they're resorting to actually paying off influencers and other reviewers to try to give them a positive spin to it. We got this article from That Park Place, which goes into some of the detail. Headline: Ubisoft buttered up YouTubers and influencers with trips to Disneyland and boat tours to promote Star Wars Outlaws. A new investigation into Ubisoft's marketing campaign for Star Wars Outlaws reveals the company buttered up YouTubers and influencers with trips to Disneyland and boat tours before giving them access to 4 hours of gameplay footage. Now, there's ways you can actually send gameplay footage to a lot of influencers. If you're trying to get people to play the game and review it, you could send that to them digitally. You don't have to actually fly them out to Los Angeles and give them trips to Disneyland and boat tours and other things like that if you want them to review the game. But that's something that you would do if you're trying to actually almost put your thumb on the scale. You don't have to explicitly say, hey, we're doing this for you, so you do something for us. It's just kind of implied that if you're not going to be favorable to us, then maybe we won't invite you to do something like this in the future. German YouTuber Cyberpunk 20XX revealed multiple YouTubers and influencers revealed how they were actually influenced by Ubisoft as part of the company's largest marketing campaign ever. And that isn't just kind of being hyperbolic here. According to the CEO of Ubisoft, they spent more on marketing this game than any other studio has ever spent marketing a game. And that's because they spent a lot of money to produce this game. So they want to try to make sure they get their money back. And that could entail just paying off a lot of influencers to fly them out there, because even though that seems kind of costly, which I'm not saying it's cheap to do that sort of thing, it's still pretty cheap, all things considered, because like, let's say you spend $10,000 for an influencer with several million followers to go out there and then give it a positive review. I mean, that's pretty good advertisement, all things considered. So maybe that's what they're thinking, like this is just a good business strategy. Cyberpunk 20XX shared footage from British influencer and YouTuber Louise Julie, who revealed she was brought to Los Angeles by Ubisoft early and was taken on a boat tour that she claims was originally a whale tour to see if we could spot any whales. Not sure what whale watching has to do with Star Wars Outlaws, but apparently they threw that in the package too. There's some tweets right here that are just kind of showing what some of the people did, or at least various influencers. Ubisoft and Star Wars flew me out to California to play Star Wars Outlaws, interview the game directors and lead writers, and meet the cast. I am beyond grateful for this amazing opportunity. VIP tour of Disneyland tomorrow. Had a blast, experiencing Star Wars Outlaw at a preview event this week. Thank you, Ubisoft, for the Nyx plushie and for flying me out for all the festivities. Built an epic lightsaber at Galaxy's Edge yesterday with fellow Star Wars Outlaws content creators and explored the park. It was an absolute blast. So you kind of get the idea. They're basically just trying to wine and dine all these people in order to, it's just implied to give them a positive review. And okay, this is bad enough right here because there's nothing in here that suggests that they're overtly saying like, okay, we're doing this for you because you're going to give us a good review. It's just kind of an implied thing right there. But now we're getting some other news too, where it's looking like there was more coercion, to say the least, on the part of Ubisoft, because apparently a German YouTuber who did a video of Star Wars Outlaws was told that he was contacted by an advertising agency and given instructions on how to actually change and edit his video of it. A German YouTuber has claimed that the intermediate agency encouraged him to give a positive coverage to Star Wars Outlaws. On August 2nd, German YouTube channel Piet Smiet co-host Peter Smits announced to the channel's followers as machines translated via DeepL, "Hi, Peter here. We've taken the Star Wars video offline, not because we wanted to sweep something under the carpet or anything, but because it should never have been published and we don't want it on the channel. We'll talk a bit more about this in the next Pietcast episode. I'm sorry." A lot of their viewers were kind of puzzled why they would take down this video, which is why they gave that response. In light of this vague explanation, several users proceeded to accuse both Smits and his co-host Dennis Brahman, the latter of whom actually played and produced the Star Wars Outlaw preview, of having their opinions bought off by Ubisoft. As summarized by YouTube user Wandercraft, the complaints against the channel revolved around the fact that Brahman was allowed to play Outlaws and recorded 4 hours, a 1 hour video was cut from it, but the advertising agency didn't like it. So it was shortened to 20 minutes, and they apparently had to cut in the required wording, including the call for pre-orders. It annoyed a lot of people because PS Smith is always against pre-ordering, etc., and it came across as if their opinion was for sale. The criticism was so bad, Brahman had to directly address it, and he said that he cut a 1 hour video from 4 hours of footage, which to me seems pretty standard, but he gave it to the agency to review just as a courtesy to them. And he says that this agency wasn't Ubisoft, by the way. He made sure everyone knew it wasn't Ubisoft. And he said they just asked him to put in the stuff about pre-ordering. And even though he says he doesn't have to do it, he decided to do it anyway as a courtesy. And he made sure to emphasize that he actually did like the game, and that's why he was kind of doing that. But of course, he kind of has to say he liked the game because he's being accused of tweaking his review in order to try to appeal the people who are trying to buy him off. And if he said like, I didn't really like the game, but I did it anyway, that basically discredits anything that he does from here on out. So he kind of has to stick with this line, all things considered. And some people would say like, well, it's not Ubisoft telling him to do this, and they're not telling him to give it a positive review. So that just kind of throws all this out the window, right? Well, not necessarily, because I was reminded when I saw this about this article I read last fall from Vulture, which is talking about how a lot of studios will manipulate reviews on Rotten Tomatoes to try to make sure their movies have a more favorable review. And the way they go about doing this, as it says, is they don't necessarily try to get positive reviews from like big reviewers. What they want to do is, let's say like right here, a score is 46% on all the important aggregator site Rotten Tomatoes, a disappointing outcome for a film with the prestige aspirations and no domestic distributor. But just because the tomato meter says the title is rotten, scoring below 60%, it doesn't need to stay that way. Bunker 15, and that's kind of a PR firm, went to work. While most film PR companies aim to get the attention of critics from top publications, Bunker 15 takes a more bottom-up approach, recruiting obscure, often self-published critics who are nevertheless part of the pool tracked by Rotten Tomatoes. So what they do is they just find a bunch of these smaller critics out there that Rotten Tomatoes still does count as the pool of critic reviews, and they'll pay them $50 to do a review for a movie. They'll be like, hey, here's this new movie. We don't think it's getting as much praise as it should be. They're not saying to give it a positive review. They're saying, we'll just give you $50 to review this, and you can put it on your site that Rotten Tomatoes pulls from. These people, they say, might ask, well, what about if we actually don't like the movie? Then they'd be like, well, yeah, you're free to have your own opinion, but maybe if you don't like the movie, you can bury the review on some other site, your own personal blog, maybe that Rotten Tomatoes doesn't actually pull from. So you're still getting the $50 for your review, and it's not necessarily hurting us. So that's not necessarily paying for positive reviews, but that's something that movie studios will do. That's what this article was talking about. And I'm pretty sure what we saw when it came to the reviews for Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws, I want to put it past them to do that for video games as well, especially when they're paying so much for marketing on it. It seems to be just kind of common sense. This is a game that they need to have succeed. Ubisoft's been losing money quarter after quarter. Their stock value's just been on the decline. The big releases they have coming up this year, well, actually, this is the only big release they have coming up this year, is Star Wars Outlaws. And then next year they have Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's facing a tough road ahead of it too, with all the controversy surrounding it. So this to me sounds reasonable that the studio will try to almost put their thumb on the scale when it comes to a lot of these reviews in order to ensure that maybe they get a positive spin, or at least a lot of these critics or influencers aren't going to be as harsh as what they probably ordinarily would be. But that's just what I think about all this. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you think this sounds feasible, or do you think it's just a conspiracy theory? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click the like button and share the video out there with your friends, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.